So I'm sitting at the dining table of the Louis Bauduc House in Ste Genevieve, Missouri, and built somewhere around 1790-ish in that time period. I got two fine living avid historians with me. I'm going to let them introduce themselves.
Yeah, we know one another, Peter, but I'm Donald Wade Davis with the Coalition of Historical Trekkers. Glad to be here.
And glad to have you.
And I'm Jeff Giuliano, and I'm the director of French Colonial America, which is the nonprofit that operates Center for French Colonial Life, including the Bolduc House.
Perfect. And you've going to give us or share with us a lot of information on these fine structures, and I think we're going to have a grand conversation.
Yes, indeed.
Very good.
I see you're eyeballing something there, Peter. What is that?
Well, that'd be a weed ram, sir.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, in fact, I remember sharing a few with you down
Yes.
there at, was it Prickett's Fort?
Prickett's Fort,
last year.
last year.
School Long Hunter, but as I recall, that was your dram right
Yes,
there.
indeed.
Yeah, it had two
Indeed.
handles too.
Had two handles. You can always tell if your bagpipe player is on the level. You know how?
No.
The spittle drains out of both sides of his mouth equally.
I recall you taking my shilling down there at that
Yes.
event, and you signed me up for the Coalition of Historic Trekkers. And
Yes, yes. Peter is we now have two Canadian members. So Peter, we made him, since he was the first, an honorarium of Emperor of the North. And for those of you that follow the Woodland Escape, he's building Kelly Station up in the North Country. I plan on going up there this year and lending my faint heart and weak back to moving a couple of twigs out of the way so he can heft logs. And but the coalition is a wonderful organization. Peter adds a lot to it. We're trying to get our own little channel started and get things going. And behind the scenes, whom you can't see, is his lovely better half, Catherine. She's in charge of filming and videography. So we're glad that they're here. Pleased that we happen to be in the area and could come together.
I'm glad we did get together. It's been good in meeting you, Jeff.
Meeting you, Jeff. This
Pleasure
is
meeting you, gentlemen. And I hope we get to do some projects together or
Yes.
programs together.
Indeed. I know for anybody that's in this area, the St. Louis area, we're just south, aren't we? A little bit
Yeah,
south.
well, you know, people think, oh, St. Genevieve, it's way down there. No, it's only an hour from St. Louis, and it's a pretty drive.
Yes, it's a beautiful drive. Coming over was beautiful country. It's rolling hills and woods, and it's just an exquisite site with a lot of old artifacts and restored buildings, and people like Jeff make the site come alive.
You know what I like about St. Genevieve is the fact that Canadians had such an influence on it.
Yes.
Right? We don't often in your country, but the first people coming down here were French Canadians, and at about the same time your Illinois French are migrating across the river because they've depleted their land. Mm-hmm. And I can only imagine, because coming down here, I drive through Illinois, it's like our province of Saskatchewan or Manitoba, flat as a tabletop. Mm-hmm. I get across the bridge and there's not a flat enough spot for a pool table.
No.
It's a beautiful country
Beautiful
here.
country.
Yeah.
Glad you're enjoying it. Yeah, and like Louis. Louis was born in French Canada. He came down here about 1760, settled in the old town, and when the old town started flooding, he moved up here, built this, and as you say, incredibly fertile land here, and great for growing the exact kind of wheat that you need for French bread, which you can't grow in lower Louisiana, so this becomes the breadbasket of New Orleans. And between that wheat and salt and lead deposits here, not to mention furs, but that's more a Saint Louis thing.
Right.
But somewhat furs here. Taking that down to New Orleans, a guy like Louis could really flourish, and he did.
And then you, Wade, you're a wee bit further west still.
A wee bit further west.
A little newer.
I'm portraying, I've stumbled upon a character. I live in Leavenworth County, Kansas, near Fort Leavenworth. And come to find out, my research showed that King Louis XV gave a trader from Kaskaskia here in southern Illinois a mandate to go out to Kansas and establish a trading post with the Kansas Indians. He mentions him specifically. And the trader's name was Du Rousseau, and he come out here, and in 1745 they built Fort de Cavigny on the site of present-day Fort Leavenworth. And when Lewis and Clark go through in 1803 and 1804, they still see the remains of the old French post. But I identified one man who worked for Du Rousseau. His name was just Pierre. We don't know what his last name was, but he was in charge of moving and packing household goods. So we assume he was some kind of packer, trader, canoeman, and he got paid annually in X number of furs, tobacco, and moccasins. So, and that fits my personality, except for the moccasins. I would have gotten paid in seat cushions because I sat on my rear end a lot in front of a computer. But the tobacco and the furs are appealing to someone. So I am Pierre du Kansas,
There we go.
someone who's from Kansas. But he had roots here in the Illinois and Missouri country.
Right.
Well,
And
next time you're here, Wade, we need to take you down to Kaskaskia,
Mhm.
to the site, and if you haven't been there.
no, I
That's,
never have.
there is not much left there, but the Catholic churches and a lot of the folks around here have connections to that, including one of my friends who is part, his ancestry is part French, part Kaskaskia Indian. Because again, you know, as happened in a lot of places, you know, the folks of French descent in general got along with most of the Native American peoples of this region, including the Osage, who were the most powerful. And there was quite a bit of intermarriage, and in part, especially, okay, here's the thing, that especially with the Osage, for the men up in St. Louis, you marry an Osage lady, and because among the Osage, the women were the business people in their families, you were marrying into a business alliance. And the fact that they were known for being particularly tall and attractive, I'm sure was purely a coincidence.
Purely coincidental.
Just
yes.
absolutely, had nothing to do with it.
Well,
You know, what I find fascinating and rather comical
What's
is,
that?
well, after the Treaty of Paris, right? So the America now is a new country unto itself, and the Paris Treaty is signed, and the French there, they play a little secret thing on the Americans there, and they cede all this stuff on this side of the river to the Spaniards. And yeah, I kind of like that.
Yeah.
That makes me, no offense to you
Oh, no.
Americans. I mean,
Oh, no.
I mean,
Well,
no offense.
I
No.
studied-
Well, I mean, the French, after all, were really good administrators, and as I said, they got along with most of the indigenous nations really well, except for the Chickasaw. Long story, we don't need to get into it. But they couldn't afford to take care of this side of the river anymore, and so transferring it to the Spanish made sense, because they didn't want the British to get a hold of it. And the Spanish actually, even though they were working on a very tight budget, they were actually remarkably good administrators. And but one of the things that they did not do as well was diplomacy with the Native American peoples, in part because they couldn't afford the diplomacy gift giving to the extent that the French did.
So Jeff, that was fascinating.
Okay, thank
I
you.
appreciate you sharing that with us. And
as
my
always,
friend
Peter,
Wade,
it's a pleasure.
And like I said, it's pretty interesting being well, you say now there's two of us with the
Yes,
coalition.
but you're still the Emperor of the North.
I'm the Emperor of the North.
Yes.
I think we're going to have an annual general meeting up there.
Yes,
There'll
indeed.
be two of us.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll invite the whole gang down
Yeah.
here in the States.
Yeah, as we say down here in the South, both y'all have a
Both of
meeting.
y'all. I'd love to get to your one in Wisconsin, but
Yeah.
time. I think there's some moose hunting happens at that
Oh,
time,
yeah,
but,
those little things get in the way.
maybe another year.
Okay,
Anyway, it's been a pleasure, gentlemen. A
Yes,
real pleasure.
indeed.
Thank you for sharing.
thank you.